I've loaded the sample project for this chapter, Retrieving Data, and here we'll run through some demos that show off the behavior of the command class. Before we do that, though, I want to point out that we'll be hitting breakpoints along the way, and there's code here in the Break for Demo class which handles this. You'll see that there's a break if checked procedure which looks at a checkbox to see if it should drop into the debugger. And there's also a break here method which always drops into the debugger, but only if we're in debug mode. That is, if we have a debug build of our project. Of course, right now we do. So you'll see these methods being called throughout this demonstration. I'll press F5 to run my project, and let's get a little more real estate here to work with. Closing up all these many windows. Well, there's so many of them. There we go. Let's get started. Here we've hit our first breakpoint, and we have an example that shows off various ways of retrieving or setting up a command. Now, first of all, you'll notice that we have our SQL connection instantiated inside of a using block. The using block is a nice tool because it guarantees that at the end of this block, the .NET runtime will dispose of the object that's described within the using block. Here we're creating a new SQL connection object, and once we're done with it, we don't need to worry about disposing of it because the .NET runtime does it for us. I mean, the using block is probably something you've used elsewhere, but it's really useful when working with connections, commands, and other database objects. So, once we've set up the connection, supplying the connection string, which we retrieve from our properties.settings.default collection, we'll use one of three different ways to create the command. First is the create command method of the connection object. Although you can do it this way, most people don't. It's very simple, though. Take your connection, call the create command method, and it hands you back a SQL command object. If we'd done the same thing with an OLEDB connection, it would hand back an OLEDB command, or any other pair of objects. So here, once we've done that, we'll set the command text property of the command object. Remember, in order to use a command, you have to set the command text so it knows what you want it to do. Another technique is to create the SQL command object, then set its properties. You set its connection property, and then its command text property. The third technique, and the one we're most likely to use in these demonstrations, is to create the SQL command object and at the same time pass to its constructor the information we need. In this case, that's a select statement and a connection. Now notice that we haven't opened the connection yet. Until you open the connection, the command object can't do anything. And later examples, once we really retrieve data, we'll open the connection at this point. In this example, I just wanted to show you the various ways that you can create and configure a command object. Obviously, everything you've seen here applies to any other type of command object as well. These aren't restricted to SQL command.